This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. If you click on the link in the description below, it'll take you to their store and they'll know I sent you there. Hi everyone, I'm Nitsa Hone, and it's Friday, so that means it's time for another MTG Top 10, the series where I rank cards based on their historical performance at Magic's highest level of competition. In this video, I'm looking at time-shifted cards. With the announcement of an upcoming paper set called Time Spiral Remastered, they have reviewed a few of the time-shifted cards that will appear in that set, and that got me to wondering about the best cards that were time-shifted in original Time Spiral. Time-shifted cards appeared in Time Spiral booster packs in their original frame and with a purple set symbol. Basically, time-shifted cards are reprints, but kind of wacky ones. Time-shifted cards are legal in any format that Time Spiral is, which means that these reprints gave these cards more chances at block, standard, and extended, and it also means that these cards are all legal in Modern. For some of these cards, the time-shifted reprint enabled a card to find a lot more success in competitive Magic. In all, there were 121 time-shifted cards in Time Spiral, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the 10 that have left the biggest impact on competitive Magic. Before we get started, here's a quick reminder on how I score cards in these videos. A top 8 at a Pro Tour, Players Tour, Mythic Championship, Legacy Championship, or Vintage Championship is worth 2 points, and a top 8 at a Grand Prix or Magic Fest is worth 1 point. Alright, let's get to number 10. At number 10, it is Avalanche Riders, which received its original printing in Urza's Legacy. It's an invitational card, which means that it was designed by the winner of an invitational tournament. Part of the prize back in the day meant that you got to design a card and it would actually feature your likeness in the art, and Avalanche Riders comes from Darwin Castle. This 4-mana 2/2 with haste blows up a land, which is a pretty awesome deal. Of course, it also comes with Echo, but even if you elect not to pay the cost on your next turn, and you probably won't, you're getting a pretty good deal out of this card. It gains some points in Urza's Block Constructed, largely as a result of the fact that Tolarian Academy decks made up most of the metagame, and being able to blow up an opposing Academy was pretty important. It was also played in Time Spiral Block Constructed, where it was played in Mono Red Aggro and in a Wild Pair combo deck. The deck contained a lot of 2/2s, so you could basically tutor up the Rider whenever you felt like you needed one. In Standard, it only gained points the first time around, in particular in Mono Red Land Destruction and Red Green Aggro decks. It is legal in Modern thanks to its time-shifted reprint, and it has gained points there as a result. It used to be played in Birthing Pod decks, which were all about having toolbox creatures, and Avalanche Riders fits the bill there, because you could search it up when you needed to destroy a problem land. You could also cast it and sacrifice it to the pod before you ever had to pay the Echo cost, and that's pretty great. It has also been played in Living In decks, where it is pretty sweet to play it early to blow up a land, and then get it back with Living In later in the game, which will let you nuke another land, of course. The Riders don't have any points since 2017, but as long as toolbox decks are a thing, it always has a shot at a top 8. At number 9, it is Lord of Atlantis, a card originally printed in Alpha. This Lord pumps all your merfolk while also granting them Island Walk. That's an excellent deal for 2 mana, and is the kind of thing that can immediately impact the board if your board is already populated with a bunch of merfolk, and it will be. Lord of Atlantis helped spawn the first successful tribal deck in Magic's history when it appeared in a mono-blue fish deck to top 8 the extended Pro Tour Rome in 1998. It has appeared in merfolk tribal decks in every other format too. Its time-shifted reprint has given it access to Modern too, where, like everywhere else, it's played in merfolk tribal decks. At number 8, it is Spike Feeder, which was originally printed in Stronghold. At first glance, this spike may not look like much. A 3-mana 2/2 that can move +1/+1 counters around or gain you life doesn't sound like much, right? Well, that's kind of true, but in its own time it played a role very similar to what Kitchen Finks does today. It's a creature who can slow down aggressive opponents by gaining you life and blocking, and it also has serious combo potential. Before we get to the combos though, we have to talk about what this card did in Standard thanks to its original printing. It wasn't used in a combo deck there. Instead, it was played in recurring survival decks, which were toolbox decks that could search up and reanimate just about any creature at will. And in that deck, the Weaver's main purpose was mostly to slow down your opponent on the ground by blocking and gaining you life, while you tried to stabilize and find a win condition. It played a similar role in Oath of Druids decks in Extended, where it could be searched up to help you survive long enough to win the game. It has also gained points in Modern, a format it is only legal in thanks to this time-shifted reprint. There, it can be combined with Archangel of Thune for a combo win. The Angel makes it so that anytime you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on all of your creatures, and if Spike Feeder is one of those creatures, you can just gain 1,000,000,000 life while also pumping your creatures with 1,000,000,000 +1/+1 counters. This combo was assembled using Birthing Pod when that was still legal in Modern, and more recently it's played in decks using Court of Calling and Collected Company, where a toolbox strategy is also viable. At number 7, it is Call of the Herd, which was originally printed in Odyssey. Call of the Herd comes with Flashback, and while it isn't super impressive, whether you're casting it from your hand or your graveyard, the power of the call comes from its ability to give you card advantage. You get 2 creatures out of a single card, which can theoretically each trade for 1 individual card of your opponent's. It's also quite nice to have one of these stashed away in your graveyard against an opponent you know is playing board sweepers, as it gives you a backup plan and a way to quickly rebuild your board, even if you're out of cards in your hand. Call of the Herd has had success in aggro decks in Block, Standard, and Extended. It didn't actually gain any points its first time through Block, but was played in various aggro decks and Time Spiral Block constructed. In Standard, it was played in blue-green token decks the first time around and in Gruul aggro decks the second time. In Extended, it was played in Naya aggro decks, then called Zoo, as well as in Oath of Druids decks. It worked well in Oath decks because it gave you a way to get a creature into play if you had to, but wouldn't get in the way of your Oath searching up your win condition or combo pieces. Unlike most cards to make this list, it hasn't translated the Timeshifted reprint into success in Modern, and it hasn't been played anywhere since 2007. At number 6, it is Gemstone Mine, which was originally printed in Weatherlight. It is a land that can produce mana of any color that comes into play untapped. Obviously, there's a bit of a downside in that it can only do that 3 times, and you don't have an option to just tap it for colorless either, but the fact this can come down and produce mana of any color with no questions asked is nice, and as a result, it's seen its fair share of play over the years. Both times through Standard, it saw a bit of play. From 1997 to 1998, it was used, as you would expect, in decks looking to play as many colors as possible, with Recurring Survival being the most frequent home for it. From 2006 to 2007, its primary home was Boros aggro decks, which were interested in having consistent mana, and not too worried about the later part of the game where the Gemstone Mine runs out of fuel, since ideally, they'll win the game before that matters. In Extended, it was used the most frequently in various combo decks, which were really only interested in using the mine once or twice to facilitate their combos that often included cards from 3 or more colors. Its most frequent home in Extended was in Storm decks. In Modern and Legacy, it is more frequently played in Dredge decks, but in the former, it used to also be played in Bloom Titan combo decks before those got banned, and it's currently also being played in other combo decks like Ad Nauseam. At number 5, it is Wall of Roots, which was originally printed in Mirage. This is a wall that helps you ramp, which is pretty sweet. It was played both times it was in Standard, in ramp decks as you would expect. It has also been played in a variety of Extended decks, including Life from the Loam and the Rock. It also has a single point in Legacy from back in 2005 where it was played in Recurring Survival, a deck I've been mentioning a lot in this video. Modern is where it has found the most success though, and it wouldn't be legal there without the Timeshifted reprint. It was played in most versions of Birthing Pod, another deck we've been mentioning a lot, which, as we've said, was a toolbox deck that also ran some easy to assemble combos, and the Wall of Roots was nice for the deck because it could be used to help you go off with the pod sooner, and then you could sacrifice it to the pod once its usefulness had worn out. Birthing Pod was eventually banned in Modern, but Wall of Roots has continued seeing play in its spiritual successor, which, as I've already mentioned in this video, are decks that run Collected Company and Court of Calling in place of the pod. At number 4, it is Serrated Arrows, a card that was originally printed in Homelands. Some of this card's points came as a result of a very strange Pro Tour. In 1996, Pro Tour New York had some special rules. While the format was technically Type 2 or Standard, it had an extra deck building requirement that really made this particular Pro Tour have its own unique format. It was required that every deck had at least 5 cards from every single expansion that was legal in Standard at the time, so people had to find a way to get Homelands cards in their deck, and Serrated Arrows was often the way to do that. It was considered by most the best card in Homelands. It was colorless, so everyone who wanted to play it could, and it could actually be used as a reasonable removal spell, potentially helping you kill multiple X1s or at least make your opponent's board state significantly worse by weakening their creatures. As a result of being colorless and considered a good card, it appeared in 6 of the top 8 decks at that event. However, its successes continued beyond that tournament. It managed more top 8s in Standard, even in events that didn't require Homelands cards, and it was one of the most played cards in the Standard of 1996 and 1997. A big reason for this was the format had several powerful X1s, like Order of the Ebon Hand and Birds of Paradise. It also didn't hurt that it could be used against creatures who might have protection against your colored removal spells. Against most decks, it wasn't hard to get a 2-for-1 with Serrated Arrows. It was also played a lot in the Extended from 1997 to 1998 for similar reasons. Then, thanks to its time-shifted reprint, it found more success in Standard. The Standard of that time was another format with several powerful X1s, including the aforementioned Birds of Paradise and several other mana dorks, which the arrows could easily take down. It found considerable success in Time Spiral Block Constructed 2, a format that also had several good targets for it. Serrated Arrows hasn't gained any points since 2008, and I think it's probably done. At number 3, it is Pendlehaven, which was originally printed in Legends. This is a nice land because in most ways, it's just an upgraded forest. Sure, it is legendary, so running a full 4 copies is unwise, but a land that comes into play untapped, can tap for colored mana, and has an activated ability tends to be a good deal. The upside is very real here too. Pretty much every green deck has 1/1s, and you don't have to tap mana for the bonus, and +1/+2 is obviously pretty nice. Pendlehaven's status as basically just a better forest has led to it accumulating lots of points over the years in multiple formats. As I noted, it was originally printed way back in Legends in 1994, but it didn't gain any points as a result of that printing. It has gained all 90 of its points on the strength of its time-shifted reprint. In most formats, it is played in basically any green deck that has 1/1s in it, so instead of going through an exhaustive list of those decks, I thought I could hit a couple of highlights where Pendlehaven was just a little better than it would be in other decks. One example of this was in Doran's Siege Tower decks in Standard and Extended, which paid you off for creatures having higher toughness than power, and Pendlehaven making a 1/1 mana dork into a 2/3 that hits for 3 is no joke. In modern Infect decks, often seek to do a ton of damage with creatures that start small, and Pendlehaven can really help you do that. Pendlehaven is going to continue to amass points as we move forward, but it seems unlikely it will ever catch the top 2 cards on this list. At number 2, it is Disenchant, which was originally printed in Alpha. Unlike a lot of the cards on this list that only have a few reprints, Disenchant has been printed approximately 1 million times, including in the newest set, Zendikar Rising. Disenchant is certainly not an exciting card in the least, but it is a card that's always useful. 2 mana to blow up instants or artifacts at instant speed is often good enough for inclusion in sideboards of formats that have problematic permanents of those types, and that has allowed Disenchant to amass its massive 179 points. It's been played in every format it has ever been legal in, and that's going to continue. It will be interesting to see if it can ever catch the number 1 card on this list, which is Tormods Crypt. Originally printed in the dark, but it has been reprinted many times, including as a time-shifted card. The Crypt costs 0 mana, which is a nice deal, since it can exile an entire graveyard from the game. You can of course leave it in play with the plan to use it in response to an opponent trying to do stuff with their graveyard, which tends to be the more powerful thing to do with this, but you can also get rid of a graveyard right away if you need to. It didn't see any play in Standard as a result of its first printing being way back in the dark, but this is largely because there wasn't really a super graveyard heavy deck in existence at the time. That wouldn't really happen until 1998, and Tormods Crypt was printed in 1994. However, a subsequent reprint in Magic 2013 and 2015. Subsequent reprints as a time-shifted card and in Magic 2013 and 2015 gave it some more time in Standard. It has found the most success in formats with larger card pools and far more powerful graveyard decks like Dredge, Storm, and Reanimator. It has been an indispensable sideboard card for a very long time, and that's not going to change. Alright, well those are the top 10 time-shifted cards. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and share it so that others can enjoy it too. If you want to make sure you catch future MTG Top 10s, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. And if you want to catch up on the ones I've already done, you should see the playlist on your screen now. Thanks for watching.